Okay. All right, so we'll start in the usual manner. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, so today we are going to start the reading on the story of Venerable Mahamoggallāna. So during the Buddha's time, he had two chief disciples. And in a lot of the temples, especially temples, Theravada temples of, let's say, if you go to what's called back in Malaysia, we have many temples from different cultural backgrounds. So where I grew up in Penang, we would have a lot of temples that are of Thai origin or Burmese origin. And then later on, when I moved to KL, we had also a lot of temples that are of like the cultural origin is like a Sri Lankan origin, although they are all like from the what's today known as Theravada Buddhism. So in a lot of these temples, you will see two figures next to the Buddha and the center. And usually there's one is Venerable Sariputta, and the other one is Venerable Mahamoggallāna. And usually the depiction of Venerable Mahamoggallāna, his skin color is of a little bit of a different color, a darker color. Okay, so we will read about his story now. So, chapter 2, Mahāmoggallāna, Master of Psychic Power. So this was written by Hellmuth. So why say Master of Psychic Power? So in terms of all the main or senior disciples during the Buddha's time, Venerable Mahamoggallāna was chief in terms of his psychic ability. The ability to perform psychic powers, second only to the Buddha himself. Okay, and we read before during previous readings of Venerable Sariputta's chapter that we know now it was quite often in a lot of even previous Buddhas where the previous Buddhas had appeared, those Buddhas also had two chief disciples. Okay, so let's read about Venerable Mahamoggallāna's youth. So in a small town named Kolita, near Rajagaha, capital of the kingdom of Magadha. So in today's modern day, Rajagaha, there's not much of a town there, but people still go there to visit, especially for pilgrimages, and now it's more known as Rajagir. Okay, and a child was born who was destined to become the second chief disciple of the Buddha. The boy's parents named him Kolita after the town. So simple way of naming a child. And the family belonged to the Moggallāna clan, one of the most illustrious Brahmin clans of the period, which claimed direct descent from the ancient Vedic seer Mahāmoggallāna. So we know that Venerable Sariputta was also of a Brahmin clan, as now we know Venerable Moggallāna as well. Both of them came from quite prominent Brahmin families. So not, in a sense, they had, you can think of very good upbringing, good livelihood, well supported kind of thing, not grown up poor or difficult, so to speak. Okay. So the town was inhabited entirely by Brahmins. And in its religious attitudes and social customs, it was extremely conservative. Here, in this sense, it means They would practice all the Brahmin, they would do their Brahmin studies, Brahmin rituals, Brahmin religious activities, and it was very strict in that sense. So Kolita's father was born of the most prominent family from which the town's mayor was usually appointed. So not only are they in his family, not only his Brahmin family, not only extremely religious, but also prominent, very strong background. Okay. And being a member of such a high caste and the town's most respected family, his father was almost a petty king. So in a sense, like a modern day, you can think of, let's say, a small township would be like the head of the town, chief minister, maybe something like that. But of course, back in those days, it's not so, let's say, not so structured. So it's more like he was like a leader of some sort. So a kind of a king, but not official king, so to speak. So yeah, his father was like that. Thus, Kolita was raised in an environment of wealth, honor, and his favorable circumstances shielded him from direct contact with the sorrows of life. So not to the extent of how the Buddha grew up, obviously, because the Buddha was a prince in Kapilavastu, but in a sense, fairly wealthy, honorable, as in highly respected. And so you can imagine that a child that's born into such a family would probably not experience a lot of difficulties in life. So that was his childhood, and he was well educated. And because it was such a conservative Brahmin community, he was educated entirely in the Brahmanic tradition, which upheld the belief in the reality of an afterlife and in the law of karma and its fruits. So yes, the law of karma, etc., is not unique to the teaching of the Buddha. In fact, it existed way before that through Brahmanism. Yeah, but the so-called emphasis and discussion around karma in the teaching of the Buddha is a little bit different in the sense that we study and practice according to the here and now, as in what happened in the past, yes, it can be a cause and condition of what will come, but it doesn't mean, it's not like we, you know, how some people say, oh, we rely on our fate, you know, our fate is such that, you know, we can't change our fate. And so it's not like that. It's more like every single moment that we traverse through life is a cause and condition for the next. And in that sense, we are in control. So it's a very different way of thinking. It's not a way of we surrender. It's more of we decide. We are responsible. We are heir to our karma, yes, but we are also entirely responsible for what we do here and now, which will influence what is to come. Okay, so it's in that sense, it's different. So these beliefs permeated the everyday life of the Brahmins and determined the form and content of their rituals, which governed all aspects of their lives. Now, Kolita's family lived on very friendly terms with another Brahmin family from a neighboring village. On the very day of Kolita's birth, a son was born to this other family, whom they named Upatissa. So here we now know that Upatissa was the birth name of Venerable Sariputta. So he was called Sariputta because he was the son of Sari. His mother's name was Sari. So Sariputta means son of Sari. Okay. So when the children grew up, they became fast friends, and before long were inseparable. Whatever they did together, whether it was play or study, pleasure or work. Always the two boys were seen together, and their undisturbed friendship was to last until the end of their lives. So we know that it's not only in this final birth that they became friends, they had known each other for many, came into contact with each other for many lifetimes in different forms of relationship, but their paths connected and crossed many lifetimes. In terms of their temperaments, the two were quite different. Upatissa was more adventuresome, daring, enterprising, while Kolita's tendency was to preserve, to cultivate, and to enrich what he had gained. Their places within their families were also different. Kolita was the only child, but Upatissa had 3 brothers and 3 sisters. So if you recall when we were reading about Venerable Sariputta's story chapter and his relationship with his family, he actually managed to influence all his brothers and sisters to join the Sangha order, to become monks and nuns, and then eventually they also attain arahatship as well. Okay, Kolita, on the other hand, was the only child. Yet, despite the differences in their characters, they never quarreled or came into conflict, but always dwelt on amicable terms, maintaining a steadfast loyalty and self-sacrificing devotion. To both use their friendship meant so much and filled their daily life to such extent that they displayed little interest in the opposite sex. But nevertheless, like other young men of their background, wealthy and high-ranking Brahmins, the two friends were enamored with the intoxications of youth, health, and life, which is normal. Yeah. Each was the leader of a group of friends with whom he engaged in play and sport. When they went to the river, Kolita's companions came on horseback, and those of Upatissa were carried in palanquins. So you can imagine that even their friends were of prominent Brahmin background. So they grew up in that kind of an environment. And each year, Rajagara hosted a grand public celebration called the Hilltop Festival, which featured popular shows and amusements. The two friends looked forward to this event with keen anticipation and reserved seats from which they could comfortably watch the entertainment, mixture of folk comedies and old legends. Typical, yeah? And on the first day of the festival, they were fully engrossed in the entertainment. When there was something to laugh at, they joined in the laughter. When there was something exciting, they became excited. And they enjoyed the show so much that they returned on the second day and closely followed all the performances. Inexplicably, however, far from satisfying them, the entertainment left them with a deep feeling of discontent. Nevertheless, they made reservations for the third day too, as a new program had been announced in glowing terms. Now that night, strange thoughts haunted their hearts and disturbed their sleep. As Kolita tossed and turned in his bed, he kept on asking himself, what is the use to us of this frivolity? Is there anything here really worth seeing? What benefit comes from a life devoted to enjoyment and pleasure seeking? After a few years, these glamorous actors will all become old and feeble. They will leave the stage of life and continue their migrations through existence, driven on by craving, and we too will also have to move on. These actors cannot even help themselves to solve the problem of existence. How then can they help us? Instead of wasting our time with these festivities, we should seek a path to deliverance. So we have to understand here the context. So the context in which this is happening does in a way relate to their previous births. So in their previous births, they had already been practicing to a certain extent. And that does form a sort of a habitual tendency in the thinking. And that's why it sets them apart. So not everyone who, goes and joins a festival will start thinking like that. Yeah. Most people won't. Most people will just consider, yes, this is great. We're just here to enjoy ourselves while we can. At best, most people will see it as while we can. Yeah. At best, people will, oh, yes, I have the knowledge that I will grow old, get sick, and die. Yes. But while I'm not there yet, I might as well enjoy it while I can. So most people tend to think like that, even till today. Yes, a lot of people know we cannot escape death, but not everybody will have the thought of, well, then what can I do about it? What is the answer? Yeah, not a lot of people can. But again, we have to understand that they had been come into touch with the teachings of the Buddha many, many previous lifetimes as well. So a kind of seed, in a sense, we say a seed had been sown previously already before. Now, Upatissa too had spent a restless night, disturbed by quite similar thoughts. And he reflected how the ancient myths and legends dramatized in those performances presuppose the reality of rebirth. But the jokes and frolics overlaying those ideas in the plays insinuated that one need to be concerned with this present life alone. Was this not an artificial suppression of truth by pretense and vain illusions? Now, what the author here is trying to say is that actually, even in today's modern society, it's really similar. A lot of there are not a lot of plays or we have movies and theater and drama, all sorts of performing arts nowadays. A lot of the ideas that are showcased, that are told, the stories, all these are medium of telling stories, are mainly concerned about things that happen in the present life. There are a number that talk about, what happens after death and touch on those topics of afterlife and stuff like that. But the majority touch on present life. And so what the author here is trying to say is, isn't that a little bit artificial? Isn't that a little bit like suppressing, as in, pretending that the topic of death or afterlife is not real, is not, we don't need to deal about it yet, kind of thing. So in a sense, whether it's 2,600 years ago or whether it's today, the medium may have changed, the so-called actors may have changed, but the underlying principle behind how everything plays out really hasn't changed that much, if we think about it. And so the next morning when they took their seats, Kolita said to his friend, "What is the matter with you? You're not your usual merry self. Something troubling you?" And his friend replied, "Last night, while I lay in bed, I kept on asking myself, what is the use to us of all these pleasures of eye and ear? They are absolutely worthless. Shouldn't we rather seek to find release from the devastating law of impermanence, to liberate ourselves from the fleeting illusions of life which lure us on, yet leave us empty? That is what has been weighing on my mind. But you too, dear Kolita, seem morose today." And then Kolita replied, "I've been thinking exactly the same thoughts. Why should we stay here any longer in this unholy vanity show?" So a little bit drastic words here, but what he's trying to say is, no point we hang around here anymore, because, it's like we watch it, yeah, we get entertained, but, after a while, it's like, so what? It's what they're trying to say. We should seek the way to deliverance. And when Upatissa heard that his friend had this very same wish, he happily exclaimed, "That was a good thought that came to us both, independent of each other," as in, it's not like, oh, I was thinking like this, what do you think? It was more like each of them separately thought about it around about the same time. And we have wasted our time long enough with worthless frivolities. But if we earnestly seek a teaching of deliverance, we shall have to give up home and possessions and go forth as homeless wanderers, free of worldly sensual bonds, rising above them like birds on the wing. And so the two friends decided to undertake the life of ascetics, homeless mendicants who then wandered along the roads of India, as they still do now. As in, nowadays there are also mendicants who wander along the roads of India, okay? In search of a spiritual teacher, a guru who could guide them to the liberating knowledge of enlightenment. And when they told their followers about their decision, because they are from prominent brahmin families, so naturally they will have some followers, okay? These young men were so deeply impressed that most decided to join their friends in their spiritual quest. So all of them said farewell to their families, took off the sacred Brahmanic thread, cut off their hair and beard, so it's a bit customary, and put on the pale saffron garments of religious wanderers. Discarding all distinguishing marks and privileges of their caste, they entered the classless society of ascetics. So in a way, they had this very strong feeling in them in order to so-called decide, make the decision or give up everything. So that's why in the beginning part of the chapter when we read and understood the kind of family background that they came from, we have to understand that the impact, mindset, to a certain extent, even mental, emotional influence. Of course, they had each other to support each other, which does help a lot. We all know now that friendship, really, or kalyanamitta, is a very strong ingredient in the path, in our practice. So that, of course, both of them had each other, support each other. But to have to decide at that point, this is too important for us to let go. And we want to find out what is
ऑनियंस में सेलेक्ट करो ना कि आप कर रहे हाँ हाँ
sorry, yeah, okay, that's okay, thanks. Thank you for muting. That might have been an accident. Okay, yeah, so yeah, let's continue. Let's read about the wandering and spiritual search journey. At about the same time that Prince Siddhartha, who became the Buddha, married, and thus for the time at least stepped more deeply into worldly life. At about that time, the two friends, Kolita and Upatissa, left behind their homes and embarked upon the difficult quest for inner peace and salvation. And together with their retinues, they began a period of training under a spiritual teacher, just as the Bodhisattva did later. So they did search, trained under different spiritual teachers. Now, at that time, Northern India teemed with spiritual teachers and philosophers. Yes, there was plenty. It was like a booming period of various spiritual teachers of many different sects and types of teaching, beliefs, etc. It was kind of booming, yeah, with spiritual teachers and philosophers whose views ranged from the demonic to the super divine, all sorts. And some taught a moralism, others fatalism, still others materialism. And both friends realized the hollowness of such teachings early enough and thus felt no attraction towards them. So they kind of felt doesn't appeal to them. So it could be because of their past previous life inclinations. It also could be, and we have to understand, they both received education, Brahmanic education. So it's also a fairly good education. So in a sense, if you can imagine even till today, if one is of a fairly good educational background, one wouldn't necessarily simply believe, oh, so and so said something, oh, okay, sounds about right. Yeah. If one had a very strong foundation in education, then typically that person would probably go, let me think about it. Let me find out more before realizing, but then what is the gist of that? So they found that a lot of these teachers during those times, a lot of the teachings were hollow, didn't have a lot of depth in it, didn't feel like what they were looking for. Now in Rajagarh, however, there was one teacher who appealed to them, and his name was Sanjaya, who, according to tradition, was identical with Sanjaya Belataputta, mentioned in the Pali Canon as one of 6 non-Buddhist teachers. And under him, the group of friends were ordained, which added considerably to Sanjaya's reputation. So obviously, because they both came from prominent Brahmin background and they had their group of followers, so you can imagine if they all come under any teacher, that teacher's reputation will grow as well. Now, the texts do not give us detailed information about Sanjaya's teaching, but from a number of brief indications, we can roughly reconstruct. Okay, so the author is now sharing that they try to reconstruct the substance of Sanjaya's doctrine. Unlike other ascetic teachers who make definite dogmatic statements about specific topics, Sanjaya maintained a rigorous skepticism in regard to deep existential problems with which the thinkers of the period wrestled. He formulated this skepticism around the chief questions debated by his philosophical contemporaries. So during those times, there were teachers of various kind of practices, but there were also a lot of philosophical philosophers, and they would constantly engage in debates, whether it's public debate or private debate. That was very common. And even when after the Buddha gained enlightenment and he started traveling and going around to teach, a lot of people, whether they're Brahmin background, other teachers, whatever, came and saw audience with the Buddha in a way to debate with him. Yeah. Some then eventually agreed with him and then took refuge, converted and took refuge in Triple Gem. Others totally disagreed and went their own way. So all types of different philosophical debates occurred. So here, Sanjaya had a certain kind of skepticism around chief questions such as, is there another world beyond the visible order, beyond what we can see? After the death of this material body, does one appear in the world beyond by way of a purely mental birth process as a spontaneously arisen being? As in, the question is, if we die here, do we just appear spontaneously in another world just through mental birth process, through whether it's through thought or consciousness, whatever, yeah? Will the good and bad actions one has performed in this present existence bear good and bad fruits in the next life? And what finally is the destiny of a Tathagata or perfect one after death? And how are we to conceive and describe his post-mortem condition? So even then, people were asking these questions as well. And whenever such questions were raised by the Indian thinkers of this period, 4 alternative types of answers were thought possible. Affirmation, negation, partial affirmation, and partial negation, and neither affirmation nor negation. Sanjaya, however, thought that with regards to the question mentioned, none of those 4 positions was acceptable as a solution. They all contain unresolvable contradictions or antinomies, and therefore he held one should refrain from any judgment about these problems. Okay, and here's a commentary by the author. And here may be noted that of the 4 sets of antinomies which often occur in the Pali scriptures, here are 2 examples, Majjhima Nikaya 63 and 72. Only the 4th set is identical with Sanjaya's problems, namely the one concerning the after-death state of a perfect one. And while other ascetic teachers always advocated one of the 4 logical alternatives as a solution to these problems, yes, no, yes and no, or neither yes nor no, Sanjaya did not commit himself to any of them. He especially did not commit himself dogmatically to the unprovable assertion made, for instance, by popular natural science that there is no world beyond, no mind-made body, no astral body, no law of karma, no survival after death. So in that attitude, he clearly differed from the materialist of his time. He taught rather that in view of the unresolvable nature of these problems, one should keep to a stance of detachment and impartiality. It means not having a sort of, being a little bit detached from clinging on to those thoughts, those concepts, not tolerating the slightest bias toward approval or disapproval of any of these theories and their consequences. So that's why he was developed kind of skepticism. That means he doesn't consider any of those 4 categories. He'd rather be a little bit detached or impartial, not yes or no, or maybe a little bit yes here and a little bit yes there, or no here. He's like, I'd rather not. I'd rather be impartial about these questions. And from this, we can see that he was a confirmed agnostic who tried to develop a consistent skepticism built upon a recognition of dialectic tensions inherent in speculative thought. So what this means is he preferred to distance himself from all these discussions, dialectic tensions, basically all those philosophical discussions that went on, all based on speculative thought. Thought means, I speculate that it's like this. I speculate, but no direct experience, basically the absence of direct experience. Most of these philosophers were debating. And so he chose not to side with any of them. Now, in the Samanyapala Sutta, the king of Magadha, Ajatasattu, reported to the Buddha the following talk he had with the ascetic Sanjaya. Although this account may reflect the way the Buddhists understood Sanjaya rather than his own way of formulating his doctrine, it offers us a glimpse into his philosophical stance. So here is the description of the talk. Okay. So one day I went to Sanjaya of the Bilata clan and I asked him, "Can you, sir, declare to me an immediate fruit visible in this very world of the life of a recluse?" And being thus asked, Sanjaya said, "If you ask me whether there is another world, Well, if I thought there were, I would say so. But I don't say so. And I don't think it is thus or thus. And I don't think it is otherwise. And I don't deny it. And I don't say there neither is nor is not another world. And if you ask me whether there are beings reborn spontaneously, or whether there is any fruit, any result of good or bad actions, or whether the Tathagata exists or not after death, to each and all of these questions do I give the same reply. And thus, Lord, when asked about the immediate fruit and advantage of the life of the recluse, Sanjaya, the beloved client, showed his manner of prevarication. So here, and I also felt, Kolita and Upatissa initially must have felt that Sanjaya's philosophy was something more than mere evasion, not having, well, I felt his was like merely evading the topic, but they felt that he's probably more than just merely evading the topic. And we can't really fault them because here they say not having met a better teacher during that time. Yeah, and this was before they came to contact with the Buddha's teachings. So not having met a better teacher, they were probably attracted to him because of his apparent freedom from dogmatism. So it's quite clear based on what Sanjaya mentioned, in a way, in summary, Sanjaya was more like, well, I don't want to take a stance because I don't know for sure. I don't know if there is a world where beings born spontaneously because I've not seen it with my own eyes. I don't know these things. So I cannot say yes or no. So that's mainly how his response was. And so that was probably what was attractive to Kolita and Upatissa. Freedom from dogmatism, from just pure belief based on hearsay, let's say. And probably he had some dialectical skills as well. After a short time, however, they clearly realized that Sanjaya could not offer them what they were really searching for, a cure for illness, of universal suffering. Besides, we may suppose that by reason of their mental formations from past existences, they must have intuitively felt that there actually was another world, that there were mind-born beings, and that there was moral recompense of actions, law of cause and cause of condition, karma, actions, bear fruit, etc. So in this respect, their understanding went beyond that of their skeptical teacher. Hence, one day the two friends approached Sanjaya and asked him whether he had still other teachings more advanced than those they had already learned from him. And to this he replied, "That is all. You know my entire teaching." So hearing this, they decided to leave and continue their search elsewhere. And after all, they had not left their families for the sake of endless and futile agnostic arguments. That's true. But they wanted to find a path to final deliverance from suffering. Thus, for a second time, they took up the life of wanderers in search of truth. They walked across India for many years, from north to south, from east to west. They endured the dust of the road and the tormenting heat, the rain and the wind, and spurred on by thoughts that moved deep within the soul. I am a victim of birth, aging, and death, of sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. I am a victim of suffering, a prey of suffering. Surely an end to this whole mass of suffering can be discovered. So very strong will, basically, you can imagine, for many years. And in their travels, they met many ascetics and Brahmins who were reputed to be exceptionally wise. With them, they had religious discussions on God and the world, heaven and hell, meaning of life, and the way to salvation. But with their keen and critical minds, trained by Sanjaya's skepticism, they very soon realized the emptiness of all those assertions, and it a bit baseless. Yeah. And the learned ignorance of these philosophers, So the philosophers, seem learned, well learned, well educated, but somehow still were ignorant of the truth of salvation. Yeah. So none of these teachers could answer their probing questions, and while the two friends themselves were quite able to reply when questioned, so they already had developed quite a good level of wisdom. Yeah. The records do not tell us who the other teachers were, but it would be surprising if the two truth seekers had not met such mystics and sages as, for example, Bhavari, a seer of great meditative power, or Alara Kalama and Udaka Ramaputta, the two teachers of formless infinity, formless realm, or infinite consciousness, yeah, under whom the Bodhisattva, the Buddha before he got full enlightenment, and he had studied under Alara Kalama and Udaka Ramaputta. And from their life story, however, one thing is clear. Until they encountered the Buddha, the two had failed to find even the tracks of a path to the world-transcending experience of liberation. What may have been the reason? Spiritual seekers at the time of the Buddha pursued, so here is commentaries, yeah? So in this paragraph is an author's commentary, yeah? So we are a little bit breaking away from the story. Spiritual speakers pursued either of two aims: to gain inner peace and serenity by deep meditation, samadhi, or to acquire a clear view of ultimate meaning of existence. Those who sought to understand the nature of existence generally proceeded through speculative flights of intellect. That means, through debate, thinking, breaking things down through thought process, stuff like that, and tended to spurn the path of meditative absorption. In contrast, those who had achieved inner peace through meditative path, for the most part, remained content with their attainment, believing this to be the final goal. Lacking the guidance of a Buddha, they did not even suspect that this meditative peace, so tranquil, so sublime, was still mundane, and thus merely a force of karmic construction within the cycle of repeated birth and death. So here we can start to develop a kind of appreciation and, in a sense, gratitude from a different angle of what the Buddha, who the Buddha was, how he gained enlightenment, what he went through, and how he got fully enlightened by himself. And also we start to gain a sense of appreciation and gratitude to the two chief disciples. Because of them, we now know that, let's say, in today's modern world, what's called, in a sense, a lot of people talk about mindfulness now, and how mindfulness helps to reduce stress, which is very true, helps to calm, bring inner peace, etc., etc. Even then, see, a lot of people are happy with that, and don't even have the thought or the idea that, so what happens after this, So because it's too easy, and we all know it's too easy when we are in this say in our, let's use jhanas as an example, yeah? In any jhana, it's too easy to be caught up in that jhana. Or let's not even use jhana. Let's just say we are having a good sitting for any particular day, any particular time. And it's too easy because, especially if we had not had a good sitting before at a different level, and all of a sudden, one day after all the hindrances are cleared, gone, challenges, whatever, none, everything, no, we keep our precepts very well. So all the obstructions are gone, and then the mind, if we are, let's say practicing the 6 hours, we're doing 6 hours well, and then the mind just naturally, and conditions, causes and conditions are right, naturally just settles in. So even at that state, just settles in, calm, peaceful. It's too easy to stay there and feel that nice. So what the author is trying to say is lots, even those days, even till today, just achieving a certain level of meditative peace, which is so calm, so sublime. For a lot of people would be like, oh, this is it. This is ultimate peace. And not a lot of people would then go further with the question of, well, does this really, end, is the answer to the end of suffering? Not a lot of people will have that question even till today. So, when I'm reading these stories, here's where I get more appreciation, let's say, more faith, more understanding of who the Buddha was, what his qualities were, what he did for, the world, and the kind of strong willpower that they had. Yeah. So their meditative attainments would bring them a blissful rebirth in one of the essential Brahma worlds, where the lifespan is incomparably longer than the essential world, but eventually such karmic force will be depleted, followed by a rebirth elsewhere, leaving the meditators in the same samsaric imprisonment as before. So in their former lives as meditating hermits, this must have happened often to the Bodhisattva as well as to Kolita and Upatissa. We can imagine, yeah. And this is one aspect of existential misery, of prison-like ignorance, either like the mystics, one settles down at the gate, regarding it as one's true home of peace and bliss, or like the speculative thinkers, one bypasses it quickly and becomes lost within the labyrinth of the intellect. So lost within the labyrinth of the intellect means continuously just thinking and debating, either with oneself or with others. Till today, there are people like that too. Though the two friends had no recollection of jhanic experience from previous lives, they obviously had an intuitive feeling that meditative bliss and its rewards were not the final goal, but only a temporary relief within the continuing cycle of suffering. So somehow they had what we call gut feeling. Yes, this is nice, but doesn't really end suffering. So hence their foremost quest was for clarity about the concatenation of existence, for understanding how things hang together in the complex web of samsara. In ages devoid of a Buddha's appearance, when there's no Buddha, their search would have been as futile as the recurring attainment, enjoyment, and loss of samadhi. It may have been an undefinable inner urge within them that did not allow them to rest until they had found the enlightened one, who like them, had gone forth in search of liberation during the last years of their own quest. If even the Buddhist Bodhisattva, then who became the Buddha, could discover how to integrate meditative absorption with penetrating insight only when he reached a critical impasse in his own spiritual search, it was not to be expected that the two friends on their own could find the subtle key to mind's emancipation, for they had neither the wide meditative experience nor the far-reaching dependent mental range of a Buddha. So what I'm trying to say is, I'm just trying to summarize those couple of sentences. Basically, what it's trying to say is, although they had a similar inclination like the Buddha had, as in so many teachers, yes, studied so many different types of meditation, etc., teachings, etc., still there was this gut feeling that no, this wasn't the end. However, the difference is the Buddha eventually by himself discovered the path and how to end suffering. So Sariputta and Moggallāna, Venerable Sariputta and Moggallāna, also had an inclination that whatever they'd seen up till now will not lead to the end of suffering, but they did not discover the end. They needed to have the Buddha to tell them, to teach them, to guide them how to end suffering. Okay, so that's the main difference. In retrospect, the friends wandering in search of truth was just a running in circles, which would end only when their uncompromising integrity and insatiable thirst for truth finally led them to the feet of the enlightened one. Okay, so we'll pause here for today. Next time we do a reading, then we will learn about how, they came across Asaji, who was one of the senior disciples of the Buddha, earlier senior disciples. Okay, so that's on the chapter called Finding the Dhamma. But let's pause here for now and open for discussions or questions. Anyone? Anyone have any thoughts so far? Today's reading is not so much about what they taught, because it's the early part of their life. So quite similar to when we were reading about Venerable Sariputta's life in their early journey before they came into contact with the Buddha's teachings. But also in this chapter we can see a little bit different perspective from an author's perspective as well. Just give a little bit of a different way of looking, let's put it that way, different perspective, different angle, different way of looking at how Venerable Mahamoggallāna and Venerable Sariputta, how they what was their strong willpower, what influenced them and led them to such decisions, to such actions, and for many years kept going, kept searching. So such, how should I say, such strong willpower is not to be underestimated. Yeah, so sometimes it's easy to think, oh yeah, lots of people do that, but they lived they lived at a time. Okay, there are a couple of things. Number one, both of them had very good upbringing. So they came from very prominent families, wealthy families, who gave up all that. Number two, it's not like they could travel with cars or aeroplanes or even bicycles. So they lived at a time where a lot of transportation was, if you're lucky, a bullock cart. If you're not, your own 2 feet, pretty much. And for them to, if they studied under a teacher, for example, Sanjaya, then they lived with a teacher and all that, then of course they would get the support from the followers of such teacher. But if they leave a teacher, it's not easy to so-called survive as an ascetic. Yes, Madam Nanda, you raise a hand, so I'm assuming you have question or comment?
It's just that I was thinking both of these venerables, the way I understand is in their previous lives, they have made aspirations. They may have forgotten about it, but those aspirations, they're like sankharas, just kind of driving them to find the truth. It just that's so one of my own thoughts.
Yeah, I like to think that way too. Whether it's sankhara or whether it's some form of habitual tendency or whatever. Yes, so there is the practice of making aspirations, and in fact, till today, what people like to do is when they visit pilgrimage sites, you know, the 4 sites in India or any other pilgrimage site, people like to make certain aspirations. So aspirations are different from wish. It's more like a stronger, I wouldn't say wish, like a goal, an aim, you know. And the reason why people like to do that pilgrimage sites is because people believe that the energy, if you believe in energy force, you know, there's even from a non-Buddhist perspective, even people believe that in certain parts in the world, different countries, etc., there are different places where the energy level of those places is different compared to other places. And so what people believe is when they go to such places and the energy there is different, it's let's say, in a sense, more calm, strong, whatever, then to have the opportunity to make an aspiration there might carry more weight, might carry more force. And like you say, it's not necessarily that one would remember exactly what aspiration was made. In a previous life, it's not like that, but there is some kind of inclination, like a gut feeling almost, kind of intuitive feeling. So in a very generic sense, some people might say, "Ooh, I've always wanted to visit." Let's say they are born in a certain country and they're like, "Oh, I've always wanted to visit the other country. I don't know why. I just always wanted to, you know." So something like that. Yeah, I see some comments here, but yeah, I think you've got more or less the idea. So thank you for sharing. So Pai said, it must have been difficult being rich and deciding to give it all up. I know Hai has difficulties. Yeah, and definitely it would be difficult. So it's good to even imagine that, you know, for them to give up everything at a time where to survive, you know, purely on public support was difficult in itself. would have made it even more difficult. And so the strong inclination, strong willpower, that kind of level of determination is very high. Okay. Nelson talked about his time in the Himalayas and thought there was a very special energy there. Yeah, so a lot of places, especially mountains, and there are a number of very holy, people say holy, or to some extent even mystic. So one such mountain, very famous, is Mount Kailash, which is somewhere, I think it is still within the Himalayan region, but it is probably closer to the Tibetan border, I think. And so Mount Kailash is very regarded as very holy by a lot of different sects and different religions, different beliefs. So not only let's say Tibetan Buddhists, let's say, who do their pilgrimages to Mount Kailash and all that, but a lot of other people that I've spoken to regard Mount Kailash is very special. Another place, that's very special energy, if anyone gets to go, is Bodh Gaya, where the Buddha gained enlightenment. That very place it still has very special energy till today, 2,600 years later. So if ever anyone has never been and would like to go, yeah, it's highly recommended. Maybe not so much on the outside, so it's a little bit outside because it's also a tourist attraction. So the inner compound where the temple is, once you step into it's a little bit like a park, and the main temple itself is actually not very big. But the inner compound, which is like a park, once we go in, if we sit there and just sit there and meditate, you can feel energy is a different level. And once you step out of the park's grounds, actually, where the hustle and bustle, and you see people trying to sell you things and all that, it's completely different. So if people are interested, haven't been. Sorry, so KR, I hope I got your name correct. You have your
Yes,
hand raised.
I'm new to this. So can you please share what is the source of the reading today?
Okay, yes, I can share it in the chat, sorry. And I will ask Bante when they upload the YouTube recording to include the book. So the book is called The Great Disciples of the Buddha. Was written a couple of years ago by two people. One is a monk, Venerable Nyanaponika Thera. If I'm not mistaken, he was a German monk, I think. And then a lay person by the name of Hellmuth. So it was a very popular book when it first came out, because it talks about the main chief disciples and I think the top senior 10 disciples of the Buddha, including Venerable Ananda. And a lot of people gain inspiration from the book for their practice. I remember coming into contact with this book approximately 20 years ago. And back then, a couple of friend introduced it to me, and then we read it. And then he said, he was really inspired, found so much inspiration to help them with the practice. And so I hope you got that. Paul, thank you. Paul shared the online link as well. And then I think we were doing some readings. Correct me if I'm wrong, those people who dial in regularly. We were doing some readings from the Bhikkhuni Samyutta, from the Therigatha. And then during one of those discussions, the topic about this book came up. And then Brother Sachin Sachinji shared a copy of this book, and then we decided, it might be nice to read about the senior disciples of the Buddha, their stories. And so we had spent a couple of weeks reading about Venerable Sariputta's story, and this week we've just only started the story on Venerable Mahamoggallāna. So I hope that answers your question, KR.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
No worries. Okay. Madam Nanda, you had your hand still raised. I'm not sure it's a previous question or a new one.
Yes, could you, I think you briefly explained, could you further explain, if it's possible, that Bodhigaya, you said, have special energy? Could you expand on it? Tell me a little bit more.
Expand on it. How do I expand on it? Okay, this is not a very good analogy. I'm just trying to think what would be a good analogy. Have you been to a beach or
Yeah,
quiet place?
yeah,
So when you go to a quiet place where there's not so many people and you connect with nature more, could be in a forest or a beach. Actually, beach is not a very good example because beach sometimes do have a lot of people. You get a sense of, I don't know you, but I tend to get immersed into the nature. So let's say if I go into a forest, go for a forest walk, and there's not a lot of people around, so it's not a busy forest, then I tend to have a sense of connectedness with the calm, almost untouched nature of the forest. Okay.
yeah.
I'm not saying Bodhigaya's energy is like that though. It's quite different. I'm just trying to find an example, yeah. How to describe? Okay, this is again a very personal description because everyone that goes there has a very different perception. Okay. My
Yes.
first initial, so I've been to Bodhigaya twice. My first initial perception and why I remember it is because it was unexpected. So I remembered after and this was many years ago, the first time I went was in 2003. So I'm assuming lots of things have changed, yeah. There's a place where just outside the grounds, after we bypass all the peddlers, there's a place where we are asked to put our shoes for, I think there's a fee, I'm not sure. Because we're not allowed to wear shoes into the compound where it's a gated compound, the compound where the main temple is. So we all put our shoes there and whatever. We can take our minimal belongings with us. The moment from when I step into the compound, not even the main building, just step into the compound, I had a sense of as though I'm transported into a different time and place. That's the best way I can think of how to explain it. It feels to me like surreal is not the right word, although you can think of it as surreal. The best, closest description I can think of is I felt like I was transported to a different time and place. I don't know if that helps.
Yes, that's great. Thank you very much.
But having said that, different people have different experiences. And again, it all depends on like what we read before, what previous inclinations we had in our previous lives. So but I used to get hooked up about all these energies and stuff like that at one time. I don't anymore. Now I'm more into 6 hours and how I use 6 hours to heal my body and mind, which for me is more important anyway. Scotland. Yes, Scotland, there are a couple of places in Scotland that have very interesting energies. London, I'm not sure. Yeah, there's a certain feel to yeah, I don't know how to explain it. Surreal is the best word I can think of. And different people feel different things, and some people don't feel anything, and that's fine. Really, really, it's fine. So Pi, for you, London was important, probably because you had some previous inclinations in London. Simple as that. Could be something else. Who knows? Yeah. But the main important thing, I think, we've studied, we've learned the teachings, etc. The main important thing I feel is not to get too hung up upon all these things. That at the end of the day, we need to come back and understand what is the purpose of our study? What is the purpose of our practice? What are we trying to do, essentially? What are we doing? And why are we doing it? That's more important. Why are we doing what we're doing? And once we really understand the why we are doing what we are doing, and knowing the how, which is the 6 R's, knowing the how to do what we're doing, then the tendency to get hung up upon any of these, whether it's concepts, perceptions, etc., will naturally dissipate. So it's not like we even have to say to ourselves, I won't get hung up on these beautiful energies that I'm feeling right now, or, oh, that's what I'm feeling now, let's not get too hung up. We don't even have to think like that, actually. Because when we are more grounded, we have a real understanding of, I'm in this because whatever, ... And through our experience, in our daily meditation, we go through different experiences and we understand, this leads to that, which exactly is what the Buddha had explained and gives me the results like what the Buddha had described. That is where the real faith occurs. Through direct experience, pretty much. Okay, I hope that was helpful. I don't know if that was helpful.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much. That's great. Excellent.
No worries. Happy to share. It's just a personal experience from my end. I used to be hung up on a lot of things, to be very honest with you. And the funny thing is, this is where it's really funny. And I mean, it's funny now to me. When I was in that situation, I didn't think it was funny. I thought it was all very real, right? The funny thing is, you know how people say there's a saying that goes like attracts like? The funny thing is, when I was hung up upon all these different things, I attracted such people in my life. And I would meet certain people that would say, oh, look, there's this really famous teacher in town, let's go. And then we go and, and then I would participate in all forms of, listen to the teachings. And this is what I used to do, really. Still Buddhist teachings, but nothing like, not really. I mean, yes, we would read suttas and all that, but somehow for me, I mean, not to the level of Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Moggallāna, but for me, I was always like, yeah, okay, looks interesting, but, many years, and also many years of trying to do the meditation with breathing, that didn't work for me. So I'm probably of a certain tendency that kind of instruction really doesn't help me at all. In fact, metta is much better for me. But funnily enough, once I realized that all that, yes, has some kind of excitement, fun, whatever, when I realized that internally through experience, that, yeah, it's very exciting, very interesting, but doesn't really help me. Sometimes it does momentarily, temporarily relief. It's like, got a headache, take a Panadol, doesn't really cure the source of the problem kind of thing. So when before I came into contact, the first retreat I had with with Bhante Vimalaramsi and Venerable Sister Kema, before I came into contact with them at a retreat, I was following other retreats with Venerable Bhante Punyaji, who's again, their approach, all very different from a lot of other meditation retreats and other teachers that I've met before. And somehow, I have to be honest, in the beginning, it was not easy because of habitual tendencies. It's like, you think about it, 15 odd years of doing it one way, not easy to, you have to kind of psychologically switch yourself and tell yourself. I had to do that for a while. I had to brainwash myself and say, look, if I'm going to study under this teacher, I might as well throw out everything that I learned before and pay attention here and not try to mix and match, not try to be smarty pants and, take a little bit of this and a little bit of what I'm hearing here and a little bit of, what I'm hearing there and try to make a cake out of it and hope that it works, I had to brainwash myself quite a bit. But I'm happy I did that. So yeah, just to share. Sorry, digressed. Pull me back.
No, that's great. Thank you very much for sharing that.
No problem. Yeah, so happy to hear that you'll try metta, KR. So if you prefer metta, loving kindness as your meditation object, please do. And of course, the 6 R's. So whenever you feel tension and tightness, whether it's in the head, anywhere, in any part of your body, all you have to do is just recognize that tension, tightness has a reason. Release, literally what Venerable Sister Kema, can you see? Okay, this is the best object I have, and it's red. Release, literally like that. Sorry, didn't mean to make a sound. Relax your head. Re-smile, that's super important. And then return to metta. Sorry, you have a question, Kia.
So I'm very new to this.
That's okay.
I do like what I'm hearing. For a person who's new to the tradition, how do you suggest that I step into it?
So have you attended any retreats, whether physical, face-to-face, or online?
No, I just heard about TWIM maybe 3 days back or so.
Okay. The suggestion is to attend a retreat because that's a very good way, a very structured way of really understanding how this works. Yeah, okay. Pai just shared Delson Armstrong's YouTube videos are excellent. Pai, do you happen to have the link to the YouTube? So there's also a TWIM Samatha Vipassana YouTube channel. Dhammasuka, TWIM Dhammasuka, no links. Oh, let me try.
Yes, Samatha Vipassana Trust has online retreats, and there are excellent twin guides. That's one option open to KR. Dhammagavesi has the link.
That might be the best way. Maybe I'll share, okay, I'll just put it in the chat, Bhante Dhammagavesi's email address, and you can email him. So there's always retreats coming up by the twin guides. There's also a lot of material on the Dhammasukha website, where original center where Bhante Vimalaramsi started all this. Let me just put in the chat Bhante Dhammagavesi's give me 1 second. 1 second. Okay, there you go. So I popped it into the chat. That's Bhante Dhammagavesi's email address. So he's senior disciple of Bhante Vimalaramsi, Venerable Sister Kema. And he's basically also coordinating. Once in a while when he's not busy, he comes on Sundays as well. But yeah, we have Wednesday session and Sunday session by Samatha Vipassana Trust. The Wednesday session is a little bit more better for India time zone, I think. Sorry, I'm assuming here, KR. Are you in the India time zone or are you somewhere else?
I'm in the KL time zone, but I can also do India time zone. Both are working for me.
You're in the KL time zone. Okay. Yep. So Wednesday sessions, I think might be a bit late. I think they're around 7:30 p.m. India time. And Sundays we try to do it 3:30 India, 3 o'clock, sorry, 3 o'clock is when we start the sitting. So 3 o'clock India time, which is KL. Now it's about 6 p.m. in the evening. So wait, hang on. No. India and KL, I'm a bit messed up. It's 2.5 hours, I think.
Yes,
Anyway.
it is.
Sorry, I'm a bit messed up. Anyway, email Bhante Dhammagavesi. He travels between Sri Lanka and India quite a bit. I think he'll be happy to answer some of your questions like resources and all that. And he might be able to suggest. Yeah, so a lot of the physical retreats are in India, but you don't have to attend a physical retreat to benefit. You can attend an online retreat. So an online retreat is where, well, ideally you dedicate like the days of the retreat just for the retreat. But if you can't, you can continue to, are you working currently, Kia, or are you retired, or are you yeah.
I'm self-employed. My timing is flexible. The
Good.
online retreat would work for me.
Mm.
I do have a question whether during online retreats, during some of the time, can I do emails and all, or
Yes.
what's the recommendation?
Yes. So with online retreats, there's a lot more flexibility because it's completely up to you. So usually the guides will also have daily interviews scheduled for you, either daily or alternate one day, but pretty regular. And so people can even continue working during the day, but you need to commit a certain number of hours each day to the meditative instructions. So there will be, I believe there's daily interviews and then dedicate certain number of hours to the practice so that you have something
Yes.
to talk about the next day. Yeah, during interviews. Yes, sorry, Madam Nanda.
Sorry to interrupt. Yes, you can discuss that with the online twin guide. I think they would take you gradually. They would say, find 30 minutes to meditate today, and tomorrow find 45 minutes, and the day after find 1 hour, that kind of a thing. And if you have any issues about the timing, you can discuss them And every day you can, with Samatha Vipassana Trust, you can complete a form for them. That is your interview form, and they would respond to you as quickly as possible. And sometimes even Venerable Dhammagavasi may respond to the interview forms. And on Wednesdays, if the times are convenient to you, KR, you can dial into the Zoom ID number is 7163 0343 799, and the passcode is 1234.
Beautiful. Thank you, Madam Nanda.
Yeah, I understand. I think this would be available on the website. So all of this is clear, and thank you for that. I'll just now look at how I can prepare myself for a retreat, as in if the retreat I do 3 months later or whenever I do it, I do want to start my practice immediately. So I will explore how to start building the foundation, basically.
Or you can do what I do. We should just jump into it. So just to share what I did, and you'll find it's really funny. This is pre-COVID times. So I tried to go back to Malaysia to visit family, yeah? And there was a time where I wanted to do something while I was in Malaysia, and that was to attend a retreat. Now, it so happened, again, you will call it causes, conditions, whatever you want. It so happened that the period of that year that I planned my holiday back in Malaysia, so usually twin retreats are 10 days. But it so happened that there was this particular retreat organized in Penang, which is where I grew up, although most of my family is in KL now. And I love Penang. A lot of Penang has a special place in my heart, let's say. So I saw this, somehow stumbled upon it, 7 days in Penang. I was like, who's the guy? I was like, I didn't even really care. I was like, all I need was a retreat. This was those days, yeah. And so I just signed up and got accepted. And I was like, okay, just make the arrangements and turn up. Not knowing, so I had zero preparation, literally. So you can choose to do that as well if you want. But just sharing. Yeah, but whatever you like.
Understand. And if I do a physical retreat, can I do some work or emails during the off times? Is that allowed?
No, I don't
I
think
don't
so.
think
No.
so.
When you do a physical retreat, you get to, sorry, May. When you do a physical retreat, you get to commit yourself. Otherwise, it won't work. I don't think so. Do an online retreat first. And also, I can give you the Dhammasukha Zoom ID. That is 865 1533 0424. Did you get that, KR?
Yes, I did. I guess this is available on the website, right? I can get it from the website.
Yes, you can get it from Dhammasukha website. And also, there's another one on Saturdays. The Zoom ID number is 82170 630349, and the passcode is 999146. That's in UK time, it's 10 o'clock.
I do understand. I think I'll look for this from the website. Let me take it one step at a time.
Yes, good
Thank
luck
you.
to you.
Yeah, that's probably best. I'll just pop a couple more links here in the chat. But yes, take your time. There's no rush. Relax. That's super important. And I'm not kidding, although I sound like I'm kidding. Relax and smile. Actually, do you know what? And people here who dialed in might disagree with me if you like. I think one of the best preparations you can do is to smile as much as you can from the moment you wake up until the moment you go to bed.
I wholeheartedly agree with you.
Madam Nanda, I know it sounds bizarre, especially if you've done other meditation retreats before, but that's probably the best preparation, KR, if you what I think. Yeah. Practice
Yeah, sorry.
smiling as much as you can. You don't need a big, huge smile, just smile as much as you can from the moment you wake up till the moment you fall asleep. That'll
I
help.
totally get it, and I understand where that comes from. Thank you.
Yeah, you
Great.
can log into twimuk.org, twimuk.org.
Clear. Thank you.
Beautiful. Well, I'm very glad that we have helped someone. I never know if this is any help. You know, sometimes I feel I'm a little bit selfish. I feel like I'm only helping myself sometimes. Anyway,
It
so I'm
works
glad
both ways. It
it works
works
both
both
ways, huh?
ways.
Yeah, that's why it's so beautiful, right? Okay, I should get to bed as well, for my own health. So yes, I wish you all a very pleasant week ahead, full of smiles. Enjoy lots of metta, loving kindness. So as I mentioned earlier, I won't be able to join you next Sunday, but Brother Sachinji has kindly agreed to facilitate and to guide. I'm not sure what the topic is yet, but it will be announced via, I think the WhatsApp group as usual. So I hope you all will have a very good session next Sunday. So keep smiling.
A
Happy thoughts.
safe journey to you.
Thank you. It's just to Melbourne, it's not far, but I just want to make sure I'm not like a zombie the next day with colleagues, you know. Yeah. Okay. How do I join the group? Join which group? Sorry, KR, I just saw your question there. Which group?
You mentioned a WhatsApp group.
Yeah,
WhatsApp group.
if you contact the link to Reverend Damagavesi, he'll put you on the WhatsApp group.
Yes. Yes.
Understand. Thank you.
Okay. Fabulous, fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone, for dialing in. Have a good week. Keep smiling. Bye-bye. Oh, wait,
Thank
hang
you.
on.
Bye-bye.
We still need to share merits. Hang on, hang
Sharing
on.
the merit. Yeah.
I almost forgot. Was having a lot of fun. We need to share merits, especially when we have fun. Just 1 second. Yeah, let me whip up the Oh, sharing merits, which is very important. Hey, excuse me. Let me bring it up here. Excuse me. So just for benefit, just sharing with KR, this sharing of merits, you will also probably get the text to this. Actually, I can share it here as well if you like. We do that normally after Dharma talks, after sittings. During the retreats, they also do this as well. So I'll share the text in the chat for your reference. Okay. So let us, hang on. Let me share my screen first. Share. Here we go. Yes. Okay. So let's share merits together. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, share in this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, thank you once again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Have a safe journey.
Thank you. Bye-bye.